The California sun poured through the wide windows of the Curry Mansion in Atherton, one of the most exclusive areas in the Bay Area. Elena Ramirez, 45 years old, methodically organized the kitchen after preparing a nutritious breakfast for the family before their commitments. Working as a housekeeper for Stephen Curry, star of the Golden State Warriors, and his family for the past 5 years had been a blessing for Elena, a Mexican immigrant who arrived in the United States 2 decades ago. "Thank you for the amazing breakfast, Elena," said Steph, entering the kitchen dressed for training. "The protein pancakes were perfect." "You're welcome, Mr. Curry," Elena responded with a warm smile. "Good luck at practice today." After the family left, Elena finished her morning tasks and checked her phone. A message from her daughter, Gabriela, reminded her of the medical appointment scheduled for next week. Gabriela, 23 years old, was in her final year of nursing school, realizing the American dream that Elena had imagined when she crossed the border years ago. Elena sighed when she saw the news from the mechanic. Her 2009 Honda Civic needed expensive repairs. After 5 years of saving every extra dollar, she had finally gathered enough for a down payment on a new car. Her old Honda had been faithful, but with over 200,000 miles, it was becoming increasingly expensive to maintain. While driving to San Mateo that afternoon, Elena couldn't contain her anxiety. She had researched for months and chosen a used Toyota Corolla, economical and reliable, perfect for the long trips to her daughter's campus in San Diego. Despite her excellent credit history, meticulously built over the years, she still felt nervous as she entered the Bayside Auto Gallery dealership. The dealership was impressive, with polished marble floors and gleaming cars under bright lights. Elena had scheduled an appointment with a salesman named Brian after exchanging several emails about the 2018 Corolla that had caught her attention. "Can I help you?" asked a receptionist, quickly glancing at Elena's simple outfit, jeans, t-shirt, and comfortable sneakers that she always wore on her days off. "I have an appointment with Brian to see a Toyota Corolla," Elena replied, trying to sound confident. "Wait over there," the receptionist indicated a waiting area, barely hiding her disinterest. Elena observed as other customers, mostly white, well-dressed, were immediately approached by enthusiastic salespeople. 15 minutes passed. 30. She checked her phone to confirm she had arrived at the right time. Finally, after almost an hour, a young salesman approached. "Are you Elena? Sorry for the delay. Brian is with another customer now." He didn't offer his own name. "You said you were interested in the Corolla?" "Yes, I specifically reserved to see the blue 2018 model." Elena showed the email on her phone. The salesman shrugged. "Oh, that one? I think it's already been sold. But we have some other models that maybe—" His voice trailed off as his gaze turned to a well-dressed couple who had just entered. Elena felt a familiar knot in her stomach. It wasn't the first time she had been treated with indifference because of her appearance or accent. As the salesman walked away without even apologizing, she glimpsed through the showroom window the exact blue Toyota Corolla she had come to see, still parked in the lot with the price tag. "Actually, I can see the car through the window," Elena said, her voice firmer than she felt inside. "It's still in the lot." The young salesman, his badge said Jake, seemed briefly disconcerted before regaining his composure. "Oh, that one? Well, someone is coming to sign the papers this afternoon." Elena kept her gaze fixed on the young man. "The listing is still active on the dealership's website. I checked before leaving home." Jake exchanged glances with another older salesman who was now approaching. The older man, with gray hair and a rehearsed smile, extended his hand. "Hello, I'm Dennis," The sales manager. It seems we have some confusion. May I ask what your budget is for today? The question was clear. They assumed she couldn't afford the car. Elena felt the heat rising up her neck, but maintained her composure. I didn't come here to discuss my budget. I came specifically to see that 2018 Toyota Corolla that's advertised for $16,995, which I reserved to see today at 2 o'clock. She showed the confirmation email again. I understand, Dennis said, his tone condescending. But we need to ensure our customers are looking at vehicles within their means. Perhaps we can show you some more affordable models? At this moment, the dealership was reasonably full, with several people observing the interaction. Elena noticed a Latino family in a corner also being ignored, and an elderly couple watching the scene with uncomfortable expressions. My financial means are not something I discuss before even seeing the car, Elena responded, her accent becoming slightly more pronounced with tension. I made an appointment, drove here, and waited for almost an hour. Dennis exchanged a look with Jake before smiling tensely. Look, ma'am. What was your name again? Elena Ramirez. Mrs. Ramirez, perhaps there's a misunderstanding. That Corolla is probably above what do you know about what I can afford? Elena finally let her frustration show. Have you even checked my credit? Asked about my income? Or did you just assume based on my appearance? The dealership momentarily fell silent. Dennis, clearly uncomfortable with the attention, lowered his voice. Ma'am, there's no need to create a scene. If you insist, Jake can show you the car, but I should warn you that our financing might be difficult for someone in your situation. At that moment, another salesman, an older man named Robert, according to his badge, approached after overhearing the conversation. He looked at Elena with an expression that mixed shame and apology for his colleague's behavior. Dennis, let me assist Mrs. Ramirez, he intervened. I believe Brian scheduled this appointment before leaving for lunch. Dennis seemed relieved to be able to step away from the situation. All right, Robert, she's all yours. As Robert invited Elena to follow him to the car, she could hear Dennis whispering to Jake, She probably doesn't even have a green card, let alone a credit history. The words hit Elena like a slap. Her hands trembled slightly as she walked to the lot, feeling eyes fixed on her back. The autumn air was surprisingly cold for California as Robert led Elena to the blue Corolla. He seemed genuinely uncomfortable with the treatment she had received. I'm sorry about that, said Robert in a low voice. That's not how we should treat anyone. Elena nodded, still processing the humiliation. As a housekeeper for an NBA celebrity, she was used to being invisible, but was rarely treated with such open disdain. This is the car, Robert said, indicating the well-maintained Corolla. 54,000 miles, one owner, all maintenance done at the Toyota dealership. Elena carefully examined the vehicle, trying to reorient her thoughts to the reason for her visit. The car was exactly what she was looking for, reliable, economical, and within her carefully planned budget. May I see the interior? She asked, regaining her composure. Of course. Robert unlocked the car and opened the door. Elena slid into the driver's seat, feeling the clean, well-maintained interior. Her hands ran over the steering wheel as she imagined driving to visit Gabriella at college, or perhaps even taking a trip along the coast when her daughter graduated. Would you like to take a test drive? Robert asked. Yes, please. During the test drive, Elena felt the smoothness of the engine and the responsiveness of the steering. The car was perfect. When they returned to the dealership, she had already made her decision. but the previous experience had left a bitter taste. "Robert, I'll be honest," Elena said as they parked. "I really like the car, but I'm not sure I want to do business here after the treatment I received." Robert nodded, understanding. "I completely understand. May I say something?" Elena gestured for him to continue. "I've worked here for 20 years. I've seen a lot of discrimination happen, especially against Latino and Black people. It's not right. It never was." He hesitated. "May I ask where you work?" The question caught Elena by surprise. For a moment, she considered not answering, but something in Robert's sincerity made her change her mind. "I'm a housekeeper for the Curry family. Stephen Curry, the basketball player." Robert's eyes widened slightly, but he quickly recovered. "I see. And do they know you're buying a car today?" "Not that it's relevant, but yes. Mr. Curry even offered to help, but I preferred to do this on my own. I've saved for 5 years for this moment." Robert seemed to make a decision. "Mrs. Ramirez, I would really like to sell this car to you, if you're still interested. But first, I'd like to call Dennis and the general manager. Would you mind?" Elena hesitated, uncertain about his intentions. "For what purpose?" "Because this dealership needs a lesson, and you might be in the perfect position to teach it." After a moment of reflection, Elena agreed. As Robert called the managers on the radio, she made a quick call. 15 minutes later, Dennis and the general manager, a man named Howard Miller, were gathered in the sales office with Elena and Robert. Howard seemed genuinely concerned about the discrimination allegations. "Mrs. Ramirez, I sincerely apologize for your experience today. This doesn't reflect our company's values," Howard said, giving Dennis a hard look. "I appreciate the apology," Elena responded calmly, "but it doesn't change the fact that I was judged based solely on my appearance and accent." "I understand your frustration, but I assure you, it wasn't intent," Dennis began, but was interrupted by the sound of the door opening. Stephen Curry, in all his 6'2" height, entered the office, followed by his press officer. A stunning silence fell over the dealership. Dennis and Howard stood paralyzed, their faces going through a comical sequence of expressions: surprise, confusion, and finally horrified recognition. "Elena, everything okay here?" Steph asked, his voice calm but firm. "Mr. Curry?" she responded with a slight smile. "Thank you for coming." Steph turned to the managers. "I received a call from Elena. She's worked for my family for 5 years. She's one of the most trustworthy, hard-working, and honest people I know." Howard Miller finally found his voice. "Mr. Curry, it's an incredible honor. I'm a huge fan. We had no idea." "That Elena works for me," Steph completed, "and should that matter, she should be treated with dignity regardless of who her employer is." Dennis began to visibly sweat. "There was a misunderstanding, sir. We would never discriminate." "I heard the recording from her phone," Steph interrupted. "Comments about green cards? Assuming she can't afford a used car that she specifically came to see, with an appointment scheduled?" Curry's press officer, discreetly positioned at the door, observed everything while several people in the showroom began to recognize the basketball star and take photos with their phones. "Mr. Curry," Elena said calmly, "I didn't ask you to come here to cause trouble. I just wanted to buy a car without being judged by my appearance or accent." Steph nodded. "And you deserve that, Elena, as everyone does." He turned to Howard. "This dealership is well known in the area. I have friends who have bought cars here. But if this is how you treat people who look like they can't afford it, that needs to change." Howard swallowed hard. "Mr. Curry, This doesn't reflect our policy. We'll take immediate steps to ensure this never happens again." "Words are easy," Steph replied. "Actions matter more." Elena, who had remained composed throughout the situation, finally spoke. "Gentlemen, I'm still interested in the Corolla, if Robert can finalize the sale." Robert, who had watched the scene with a mixture of amazement and satisfaction, quickly nodded. "It would be my honor, Mrs. Ramirez." As they headed to a desk to start the process, Howard anxiously followed. "Mrs. Ramirez, we'd like to offer a considerable discount on the car, plus free maintenance for a year, as an apology." Elena stopped and looked directly at Howard. "I appreciate the offer, but I don't want special treatment now that you know who my employer is. I want to pay the advertised price, like any respected customer would." Steph smiled with pride as Howard nodded, visibly embarrassed. The following week, Elena was driving her new blue Toyota Corolla on Highway 1, heading to San Diego to visit Gabriella. The California sun gleamed on the ocean to her right as she drove south. Her phone rang through the car's Bluetooth system. It was Aisha Curry, Steph's wife. "Elena, how's the new car?" "Wonderful, Mrs. Curry. Thank you so much for everything. Steph told me what happened. He also mentioned that you refused to accept any special discount. That was impressive." Elena smiled while keeping her eyes on the road. "It was nothing special. I just wanted to be treated with respect." "Well, you should know that after you left, Steph had a long conversation with the dealership owner. They're implementing an anti-discrimination training program for all employees, and Dennis was transferred to the administrative department." "That's good to hear," Elena responded. "And one more thing. The story reached the local newspapers. No names, but you're inspiring people, Elena." As she drove southward, Elena reflected on how a simple desire to buy a car had transformed into something much larger. It wasn't about having a celebrity intervene for her. It was about standing up for her own dignity and, perhaps, making a small impact for others who face similar discrimination. On the radio, the announcer was announcing that the Golden State Warriors would face the Lakers that night. Elena smiled. She and Gabriella would watch together, cheering for the man who wasn't just a basketball superstar, but someone who understood the value of respect, regardless of who you are or where you come from. Her new Corolla continued gliding along the coast, taking her toward her daughter and a future built with hard work, dignity, and the power to command respect.